Christians are traveling with a nation that is at war with Tripoli, neither he nor his goods shall be taken.
This has been an American Minute with Bill Federer. For a free transcript, call American Minute at 1-888-USA-WORD.
VCY America presents Crosstalk, a nationwide call-in program discussing issues that have an effect on our families, our communities, our churches, our nation, and our world. Crosstalk, an opportunity for you to voice your concerns for biblical principles. And now live by satellite and around the world on the internet at VCYAmerica.org. Here is today's Crosstalk.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to Crosstalk. We're going to be talking about what's going on in Canada, Canadian tyranny going on right now. We're going to be listening to a little message here from Justin Trudeau here in just a moment, as well as he announced these emergency powers that were coming into being. But sure enough, the Prime Minister declared this national emergency, invoking extraordinary powers as the trucker-led protest against COVID-19 vaccine mandates continued for their 18th day as this was coming about. This week, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, instituted the Emergency Powers Act. We're going to hear a little bit of what he had to say at his address on this very issue.
With each illegal blockade, local law enforcement agencies have been acting to keep the peace within their jurisdiction. Despite their best efforts, it is now clear that there are serious challenges to law enforcement's ability to effectively enforce the law. On Friday, Ontario invoked a state of emergency to respond to the blockades. This was the responsible and necessary thing to do. Today, to continue building on these efforts, the federal government is ready to use more tools at its disposal to get the situation fully under control. After discussing with Cabinet and caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. The Emergencies Act will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country. This is about keeping Canadians safe, protecting people's jobs, and restoring confidence in our institutions. Here's how the measures we're taking today will help get the situation under control. The police will be given more tools to restore order in places where public assemblies can constitute illegal and dangerous activities, such as blockades and occupations, as seen in Ottawa, the Ambassador Bridge, and elsewhere. These tools include strengthening their ability to impose fines or imprisonment. The government will designate, secure, and protect places and infrastructure that are critical to our economy and people's jobs, including border crossings and airports. We cannot and will not allow illegal and dangerous activities to continue. The Emergencies Act will also allow the government to make sure essential services are rendered, for example, in order to tow vehicles blocking roads. In addition, financial institutions will be authorized or directed to render essential services to help address the situation, including by regulating and prohibiting the use of property to fund or support illegal blockades. And finally, will enable the RCMP to enforce municipal bylaws and provincial offences where required. This is what the Emergencies Act does. Let me be equally clear about what it does not do. We're not using the Emergencies Act to call in the military. We're not suspending fundamental rights or overriding the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. We are not limiting people's freedom of speech. We are not limiting freedom of peaceful assembly. We are not preventing people from exercising their right to protest legally. We are reinforcing the principles, values, and institutions that keep all Canadians free.
Israel, Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as he spoke on Monday of this week pertaining to the emergency powers that he was instituting in Canada. Also, the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, said that the government is seeking to cut the legs out from the protests by draining its financial support, and mentioned that they would use Canada's terrorist financing rules to ensure that protesters cannot use cryptocurrencies and crowdfunding platforms. Let me go back here to a statement that she made earlier on Monday here this week. Again, this coming to us from the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland.
This is about following the money. This is about stopping the financing of these illegal blockades. We are today serving notice. If your truck is being used in these illegal blockades, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. Send your semi-trailers home. The Canadian economy needs them to be doing legitimate work, not to be illegally making us all poorer.
Okay, again, that coming from the Canadian Deputy Prime Minister there, Chrystia Freeland, speaking also here on Monday. From FoxNews.com, Canadian truckers protesting in Ottawa told Fox News that Ontario's easing of COVID-19 restrictions was not nearly enough to get them to leave. This is a piece that came out just earlier today. They said it's like a piece of bone thrown in front of a very hungry pit bull. Trucker Kisaba Vizzi told Fox News it's just not enough. Truckers have occupied Ottawa since late January, demanding an end to COVID-19 mandates. The Ottawa Premier Doug Ford accelerated the province's reopening plan on Monday, announcing that vaccine passports and capacity limits would end on March 1st. Masking requirements, however, would remain in place. Ford said the change was not happening because of the protest, but in spite of it. We're moving in this direction because it's safe to do so, the Premier said. Truckers want all of Canada's COVID-19 mandates lifted. To me, it was almost like nothing, Jan Groen told Fox News. They eased it for the general public to go to the grocery store, but the federal government hasn't changed their point of view on it at all. Some felt Ford was playing games with them. Doug Ford is just playing yo-yo with these mandates, said a trucker, Derek Brower. 1 week it's this, then they let you go, then they take it back. Another trucker, Tim Norton, said they can take it back on whenever they want, and as soon as they get the trucks out of here, then they might change their minds and lock everything all down again. So they're still not in a very good place, Norton continued. And another one said it's a step in the right direction, adding that they still needed the Trudeau administration support and written confirmation that mandates would be lifted. Another one planned to wait until the truckers' full demands were met. I already got a special delivery, one trucker said, some sunscreen for August. If I have to be here, I don't want to get burned on my beach chair sitting next to my truck. Well, also from Fox, truckers who remained in Ottawa Monday evening were largely undeterred by Trudeau's use of the Emergencies Act. They felt it was another power grab and said that they would continue their protest. One trucker committed to staying opted to resign from his company after he was suspended Monday. The more they are trying to put us to the corner, the more we're willing to stand our ground, another trucker said. That was Edward Marty Rose. He told that to Fox News. Another trucker called Trudeau's move disgusting. He keeps grabbing more power, digging deeper, and we just want to talk. Many felt rather than deterring the truckers, Trudeau had motivated them, saying, I think it's wonderful that I'll tell you why, because even more Canadians who've been looking at this whole thing passively from their home or their couch, they may want to wake up and stand with us. Trudeau just gained more freedom fighters, a trucker said. Another trucker said, if anything, it makes him look incompetent to do his job. One trucker told Fox News, though, he's heading back home to Alberta, indicating that I can't afford to get my truck and all my accounts and stuff seized. This is a trucker, Tim Norton, who had been parked in Ottawa since the convoy began. I got too much money tied up, and I can't take a chance of losing it all, the trucker explained. Some of these guys can, but I can't. Well, it's also interesting from LifeSiteNews.com that a third Canadian Liberal Party member of Parliament called into question Justin Trudeau's handling of the COVID crisis, saying Canadians deserve to know when virus rules would be lifted. He indicated, I personally agree that the government of Canada, the same as various provincial governments, needs to come forward and explain when and under what circumstances some restrictions will be lifted. This is Liberal MP Anthony Housefather. He said this last Thursday in a debate on the House of Commons. He said measures such as this are exceptional. We need to make sure that Canadians understand why they are in place and when they will be lifted. He noted that every level of government needs to effectively communicate with the population what its plans are with respect to all restrictions and needs to explain why they are there and what point they will be removed. And this is an important thing that all levels of government need to do, Housefather added. Another, despite Housefather saying that he thinks COVID rules need to be revisited, in his view, restrictions on the vaccinated should be lifted first. He also pushed COVID shots as well, saying that vaccinations are the key to getting us out of the pandemic. Housefather also noted that vaccine mandates remain important and that requirements to wear masks indoors, which are important because we know that the virus is usually transmitted in poorly ventilated indoor spaces. His comments are not as strong as two other Liberal members of Parliament who have broken ranks with Trudeau over COVID restrictions, but are significant given his closer relationship with the leader than most of the members of Parliament. Liberal MP Joel Lightbound from Quebec was the first MP from Trudeau's fold to accuse the party leader of causing unnecessary division with his COVID measures. Late last week, Liberal MP Yves Robillard from Quebec said that he agrees with everything that Lightbound had said. So you've got Liberal MPs, members of Parliament, that are breaking with Trudeau now on these COVID restrictions. Daily Wire is reporting about the crowdfunding platform Give, Send, Go, operating again after a cyber attack against a Canadian trucker Freedom Convoy fundraiser occurred this past Sunday night. Give, Send, Go released a statement to social media on Tuesday to address the many concerns related to the incident. Sunday evening, February 13th, Give, Send, Go was attacked by malicious actors attempting to eliminate the ability of its users to raise funds. There was a broadcasted breach showing one such actor illegally hacking into Give, Send, Go and distributing the names and emails of the donors of the Freedom Convoy campaign. However, no credit card information was leaked, no money was stolen. The statement continued. The company shut down the site to prevent further damage and claims it performed many security audits to prevent future attack. Now, I'm going to continue reading their statement here just after the break, and we're also going to be learning of a business that had to close down after that leaked information brought about, threats to the business. We'll be back in just a minute as we're talking today about Canadian tyranny here on Crosstalk. Back here in just 60 seconds.
Back to Genesis with Dr. John Morris, geologist and president of the Institute for Creation Research. Dr. Morris, when did the Ice Age happen?
Chris, the Bible doesn't mention the Ice Age by name, but it probably occurred in the several hundred years following the flood as an after effect of the flood. The waters then were probably much warmer than today and would have easily evaporated, pumping great volumes of moisture up into the atmosphere, where it would then condense and fall as snow. The snow continued to build up and packed into ice, which then could flow south, but it certainly didn't cover the entire globe. This would have been happening up through the time of Abraham. Job lived about the time of Abraham, and in the book of Job, ice and snow were mentioned more times than in any other book in the Bible. Job lived in a warm area, but he knew about the ice up in Europe. The ice age would have continued until the oceans gave up their excess heat, and that all happened back in Genesis.
To learn more about creation, get our free DVD called That's a Fact. Call us at 800-628-7640 and mention the promo code FACT.
This is Crosstalk on VCY America, and talking about the Canadian tyranny going on with this Emergencies Act that was instituted by the Premier, Justin Trudeau. And very interesting indeed that I believe there's only been 4 times in the history of Canada in which an emergencies type act had been instituted, and 2 of them was at World War I and World War II. Well, I'm looking right now at the statement that was made from Give, Send, Go as they came under a cyber attack here on Sunday. Let me just reread the last paragraph that I read before the break. Sunday evening, February 13th, Give, Send, Go was attacked by malicious actors attempting to eliminate the ability of its users to raise funds. There was a broadcasted breach showing one such actor illegally hacking into Give, Send, Go and distributing the names and emails of the donors of Freedom Convoy campaign. However, they say that no credit card information was leaked, no money was stolen. The company shut down the site to prevent further damage and claims it performed many security audits to prevent future attacks. Give, Send, Go has a dedicated team aggressively focused on identifying these malicious actors and pursuing actions against their cybercrime. At the time of the intrusion, Give, Send, Go's security team immediately shut down the site to prevent further illegal actions against our site. We also performed many security audits to ensure the security of the site before bringing the site back online. The statement had added, the final words of the statement noted that the cyber attacks represented more than a technical issue, telling supporters the platform is in a battle. That's what they said. We are in a battle. We didn't expect it to be easy. This has not caused us to be afraid. Instead, it's made us even more evident that we cannot back down. Thank you for your continued support, prayers, and countless emails letting us know that you're standing with us. The statement concluded on Saturday. Give, Send, Go reported on Twitter that they're continuing to work with different campaign organizers to ensure funds reach the Freedom Convoy. Saying this, the funds from the Freedom Convoy are not frozen, contrary to what you might be hearing on the news. Give, Send, Go is working with many different campaign organizers to find the most effective legal means to continue funds flowing, the company wrote. Well, so in regard to those leaks, the Daily Caller just reported here early afternoon today that a woman who donated to the Freedom Convoy, a group of truckers and individuals protesting Canada's vaccine mandates and COVID-19 restrictions, was forced to close her gelato store after her information was leaked in a hack of Give, Send, Go. She's the owner of a store in Ottawa. She said in an interview with the Ottawa Citizen she was forced to close down her store after she began receiving threats. You see, her name appears on a list of Freedom Convoy donors that was stolen from the crowdfunding site Give, Send, Go on Sunday. And it was, she said, we got a call from the team saying we're getting phone calls. This is Tammy Giuliani, the owner. She told the Ottawa Citizen what's going on. They're threatening to throw bricks through our window. They're threatening to come and get us. We said lock the door and we'll find out what's going on. Giuliani said she told staff to go home for their own safety, report the threats to the police. She confirmed to the Ottawa Citizen that she made a $250 donation to the Freedom Convoy on February 5th and said she was initially inspired by the protesters' goal of easing COVID-19 restrictions. Isn't that amazing? Where are the threats coming from? Where is the tyranny coming from? It is kind of, it's so ironic because we've not seen this coming from the truckers or those standing in solidarity with them. But it is coming. The threats, the physical threats of violence are coming because she dared to donate money to the cause. WND.com is reporting that the truckers' convoy protesting the mandates across Canada has proven to be at least partly successful as provinces are starting to relinquish their mandatory mask and vaccine demands, even as the action has enraged politicians, triggered a national emergency declaration. Now the same movement coming to the United States. A report in Newsweek has cited an email from organizers and revealing that the mega convoy, so named after former President Donald Trump's campaign slogan, Make America Great Again, is to start engines in Los Angeles on February 25th, they reported, and then head to Washington, D.C. Many stops are planned, the email said. Okay, it's our turn. The Canadians did a great job, but we're going to boost the Freedom Convoy and include a mega convoy, too, the report quoted from the email. The Canadian protest started with a group of truckers in Western Canada, decided to fight Justin Trudeau's limits and mandates. The trigger was a demand for truckers to be vaccinated to cross the U.S.-Canada border. They arrived in Ottawa, the capital, 2 weeks ago, and since then have been targeted by government action, up to and including arrest and confiscation of trucks. The movement actually already has reached the U.S. with a short-term protest that happened recently among truckers in Alaska. And then also Erie.com reported that there was a big show of support for members of the U.S. Freedom Convoy who made a stop in Erie last weekend. It was the support of the Canadian truckers, and participants arrived at the Pilot Travel Center on Perry Highway. Everyone's encouraged. We feel hope for once. We feel in 2 years that maybe this will end things. Maybe this will end. This will have a new beginning. Maybe we cannot be divided any longer, said Jennifer Wizarek. The group began in Tennessee, made several stops en route to Buffalo. Yahoo reported there were multiple moves to create a U.S. convoy. And not only here in the U.S., but NewAmerican.com is reporting also, much like the Canadian capital of Ottawa, that Australia's federal capital and Canberra is also currently under a well-mannered siege from anti-authoritarian protesters, as ordinary citizens are finally saying enough to draconian measures meant to combat COVID-19. The so-called convoy to Canberra is also began late in January, with many of the movement's goals echoing those of their Canadian counterparts. Protesters from all over Australia have descended upon the national capital, which lies at the northern tip of the so-called Australian Alps, to call for an end to what protesters say are unreasonable measures and mandates that the federal and state governments in Australia are using to enforce vaccinations and vaccine passports. Rebel News Australia posted footage of thousands of Australians shouting, "Sack them all," outside Parliament House there at their capital. Also, a commentary that came out from Andy Schlafly of the son of Phyllis Schlafly, was on WND.com. Just going to read a few excerpts from his commentary on this matter. He said, foreign leaders may perceive the next 3 years as an opportunity to get away with mischief that would never occur under the strong leadership of President Trump. He said, politics abhors a vacuum is a cliche that accurately describes how bad things happen when there is a void in leadership, as there is now. The dictatorial Canadian law authorizes the government to seize bank accounts and compel individuals and private companies to crack down against peaceful protesters. The long-term damage wrought by this infringement on civil liberties in our most important neighbor is immeasurable and could spill over into our own country. Perhaps Biden is so quiet about the emerging dictatorship in Canada because his advisors would like to see him do likewise here. After all, Biden himself ordered private employers to impose his vaccine mandate until the Supreme Court stopped Biden in a 6-3 vote. In 1959, Americans were understandably alarmed when a communist seized power in Canada and installed a brutal dictatorship on the island just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. Canada is even closer. Across a border that is the longest in the world, and a progressive takeover there could cause great damage to our country, Schlafly writes. With his unprecedented invocation of Canada's Emergencies Act, Trudeau asserts the power to control domestic travel, command services deemed essential, control the distribution of goods, and impose hefty fines on his own citizens. Like the inhumane retaliation against January 6 protesters by House Democrats, which included imprisonment and solitary confinement without trial. Canada's Liberals seem bent on doing likewise to peaceful truckers. The widespread, heartfelt public support of the truckers is obvious from the volunteer help that they have received and from the outpouring of donations. The retaliation by Internet trolls who publicly disclose small donors' identities is shocking, and such invasion of privacy and harassment should be prosecuted. as the pricey Super Bowl celebrities brazenly violated the mask mandate on national television, yet punishment of them is not even suggested by Democrats. Instead, the regime picks on working truckers, many of whom brought their entire families in their coaches while enduring the frigid February temperatures up north. In a recent Maru poll, only 16% of Canadians say they would vote again for Trudeau, while Biden's average net approval-disapproval rating has fallen to minus 11% across all major polls. Yet, as in the United States, the Canadian media have protected Trudeau and failed to report fully on the events. For example, it was the New York Post that reported last week how cameras caught an Antifa-affiliated Canadian hitting and injuring 4 peaceful protesters with his Jeep before speeding off in an attempt to escape. He then ran several stoplights and resisted arrest before finally being captured by Winnipeg police. Yet all major media continue to falsely portray the truckers as criminals. That's an excerpt from an opinion piece, a commentary from Andy Schlafly. And in light of all of this that has taken place, reported here, various media, this is a report I have from the BBC, that protesters that have occupied the Capitol for a number of days, we find now that after the Emergency Powers Act has been instituted, the Ottawa Police Services Board has confirmed that the police chief of Ottawa resigned, doing resignation at a public meeting that was being held yesterday. In a statement on Twitter, the chief defended his policing record and said that he was stepping down with a heavy heart. Since the onset of this demonstration, I've done everything possible to keep the city safe and put an end to this unprecedented and unforeseeable crisis. I'm confident the Ottawa Police Service is now better positioned to end this occupation. Very interesting indeed. Well, friends, this is what we're calling Canadian tyranny here today on Crosstalk, as the Emergency Powers Act and the Emergencies Act in Canada has been implemented. And just giving you a brief overview and rundown of what's taken place, we understand that even people have been threatened to take food to the truckers, doing a delivery service to truckers, and to have certainly trucks seized and insurance stopped and bank assets frozen. How far is this thing going to go? And will we see those like actions take place in other countries around the world? Is this the reason why Mr. Biden's been so quiet on this issue? He fully agrees with taking such actions? Would he be instituting emergency powers here in the United States? We're opening our phone lines here today just to get your comments on what's going on with the whole matter here of the truckers in Canada, certainly the thoughts as well of perhaps a convoy going across the United States. What's your reaction to this? Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. Again, our number is 1-800-733-9829. Are you in support of the truckers? Are you in support of Justin Trudeau with his emergency powers? Are you in support of what we had heard from the Deputy Prime Minister as well, Chrystia Freeland? As she talked about, if your truck is being used in these illegal blockades, your corporate accounts will be frozen. The insurance on your vehicle will be suspended. Let's get your thoughts here today. We're going to begin in Salina, Kansas. We have Russell calling. Russell, you're on the air.
Yes, Jim, thank you for taking my call. This was showing to me the what can be built on a lie. The whole thing is built on the lie of the COVID thing, and now where is this going to go? And to me, it's just shows what a lie will do. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell, for your phone call here today. Our number to Crosstalk, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with more of your phone calls here on Crosstalk to get your reaction to what is taking place in Canada right now, the Canadian tyranny, and the national emergency powers put into effect by Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada. Back in a minute. This is Crosstalk.
Do you find yourself guilty of committing the same sin over and over again? You confess it, but you find yourself repeating it again. The Bible tells us that we are to mortify or put to death the deeds of the flesh. For believers, this becomes a daily challenge as the internal struggles ensue. Sadly, many fall into repeating patterns of sin and struggle sincerely with knowing how to break free. In the book Killing Sin Habits, author Stuart Scott addresses the repetitive nature and pattern of sin and the hindrances that keep people from overcoming their sinful habits. He also provides practical insight as to how God, through the work of the Holy Spirit and radical faith, can help you have victory over sin in your life. He addresses the issue of genuine repentance and provides a detailed battle plan for killing sin habits in our lives. The booklet, Killing Sin Habits, is available for a donation of $12 or more by calling VCY America at 1-800-729-9829. That's 1-800-729-9829.
Well, truckers in Canada have been saying enough is enough. We're not going to give in to these mandates. We're not going to take the shot to cross the border. You know, we're just not going to do that. These are people who often travel alone in their trucks or have a family member with them as they're traveling. Let's get more of your reaction here to this topic here today of Canadian tyranny. Dave in Kenosha, Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Hi, Jim. Good to have you back. A couple comments. It's inspiring what these people, liberty-loving Canadians, have chose to do to take their stand. And a comment by William Burke, a spokesman many years ago, said, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph over good is for good men to do nothing. So it's time for good men, good women to take their stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Jim in Brookfield, you're on the air.
Hi there. It sounds like way back when, in 91, when everybody was picketing the abortion clinics, and it doesn't seem like that long ago, but it was.
Yeah.
And the people were picketing the abortion clinics, and what the government used was people blocking that entrance and people going out in the streets, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they forced the RICO statutes on all the protesters across the country. And they could find little things wrong that they could force the judges to do this to the people that were picketing. And the only thing they can really, that we as people can do, is vote them out of office. I see nothing else that can be done, because evil people are going to keep on doing evil.
Yeah.
And these people have showed their hands. So I hope, like you said previously, that they get voted out of office, because there's nothing else that can be done at this point.
You know, Jim,
get rid of them.
And this is why the Soros money has been so instrumental in putting in like-minded district attorneys in key cities across the United States, and instituting judges to get into their positions in order to fulfill those wishes. I mean, there are those who are pushing no prison for anything, no jail time for anything, and certainly we are seeing the lackadaisical approach. I mean, look what happened with our own DA in Milwaukee County.
Yes.
With the Waukesha Parade, a man who should not have had a low bail like was being set for him.
And this is the same thing in the local New York papers. They're talking about the low bail that was set for that fellow that really manhandled that woman on the subway.
Yeah.
So thank you for everything.
Thanks for the comments here, Jim. Let's go to James. Toma, you're on the air.
Yeah, thank you for taking my call. We're seeing the people who call evil good and good evil doubling down in tightening up their fist and digging in. The reason is because they know that if good people prevail, if they are unseated, then they will face prosecution. And, these could be very serious crimes, even crimes against humanity. They are not going to relinquish their momentum, but more than that, they know that this is the end game for them if they let go.
Yeah. Thank you for your comments here today, James. Our number here, 800-733-9829. That's 800-733-9829. Richland, Washington. Philip, you're on the air.
Hi, my name is Philip Gordon. I had my career was in research and development, and I look at the big picture. The big picture is that what we need to do is to get the big problem solved. The problem is disseminating the information about the truth about COVID. COVID, according to the doctors that you interviewed from Senator Johnson, that report needs to be put in hard copies and mailed out to these people so that they can see a document that is signed by the doctors, signed by the Senator Johnson, and distributed to anyone in the world who needs it. I have dealt with missionaries throughout the world, and the problem is all over the world. They are faced with COVID restrictions in every country that's in this world. And so I think the problem lies with Crosstalk in not putting out a written document. It's a hard copy that can be obtained and distributed.
Well, Philip, Crosstalk is we're providing news for you. So we're not a group to I mean, Senator Johnson certainly, or doctors' organizations, but that is not the role of Crosstalk to put out a document like you. I mean, Philip, why haven't you put out a document?
Because it takes time.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. But indeed. There are those resources that are out there, but Philip, there is a war. I agree. There is a war against the truth that is taking place today, and Senator Johnson's event that he had, I think, was close to 5 hours long, and the media were invited. But has the media carried this? I think Crosstalk has carried more of this than any other national news outlet here to get out the information. Indeed, we are also saying that there are
to be documented. You could document it. Reduce it down to
Senator Johnson does have it documented.
Information to make these several pages, but make these available and have them easily obtained.
It's all easily obtained and documented through Senator Johnson's office. You go to his website, and the information is there. And trust you'll make avail of that, Philip. Thank you for the call. Jerry in Pittsville, Wisconsin, you're on the air.
Hey, sir, how are you? I think one of the reasons you're not going to see the U.S. government, now I'm a disabled veteran from Shield Storm, and I'm currently driving down the road in a truck. And when I heard you make this, call out about the reaction to what's happening in Australia and Canada, I think one of the reasons you're not going to see Biden, that's why he's eerily quiet, because even though he would like to do what they're doing, there's a vast difference between the United States of America and Australia and Canada, and that is this. There's 143 million gun owners in the United States, and we are the largest standing army in the world. And so, as was said, a tree of liberty sometimes has to be watered by the blood of tyrants and patriots.
Well, Jerry, we're going to hope that never gets to that point. We hope that reason will prevail. We hope that, we just had an election here in the state of Wisconsin. Voter turnout was so pitiful in so many areas. And you've got various elections from school board to mayors and others that are being, cast. And it is sad. When will the people wake up to see even their ability and their responsibility and their stewardship to get out there and vote?
But I think the reality of it is most people, maybe I'm in the minority and don't understand, but I think a lot of people that are reasoned and educated fully understand what happened in this last presidential election, and it's left a lot of people disenfranchised because I would like someone to explain to me, when is the last time you've seen 70 million people vote in a presidential election, let alone one side claim they got 70 million and the other side got whatever, 50 or 60 million. That's never happened. So the question is, where do all these extra votes come from?
Yeah, and we're not traveling down that path here today, but if this whole thing stops you from going to the polls and voting, then the side that you're in opposition to wins. Thank you, Jerry. Kay is calling from Tacoma, Washington. You're on the air, Kay.
Oh, hi. So I've been listening to this program, and I think it's very one-sided, and I don't know if you guys want to hear some facts that I think are relevant to this debate, and I'm going to just say them. The number one fact is that most of the Canadians are vaccinated, over 80%, close to 90%. 90% of the truckers in Canada are vaccinated. So the people who are vaccinated have done their duty, their civic duty, and they have worked to end this pandemic, whereas the people who are unvaccinated are the reason while we are in the third year of the pandemic.
Oh, really?
And yes, of course, the unvaccinated people are the ones that get, for the last 12, 18 months, it's only 90% of the people who've been sick, who've been hospitalized, who have died, are the unvaccinated.
Well, Kay, you better get your facts and records straight, because that is just not the case. And there have been a number of medical doctors that have been on this that would totally refute the things that you are sharing here today. And if this is true in Canada as well, why the masses of people that are coming out in regard to this? So I'm going to have you go back to the drawing board here. I don't know if you work for the Biden administration, because that's what he said as well, that this is a pandemic of the unvaccinated. But that just doesn't hold water. Let's go to Lana calling from Ontario, Canada. You're on the air.
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say thank you so much for covering everything that's happening in Canada, and we really appreciate all the prayer and support from our brothers and sisters down south. So, yeah, we live in a small town, and once a week we go out and have, like, a little convoy, and, like, over the last 2 years it's just been, like, so hard. But, I don't know what it's like where you are, but here there's just like masking everywhere. And over the last couple of weeks, it's just been so exciting to actually see faces and smiles.
Yeah. And that's another point of this, Lana, as well, as the psychological impact that this is having upon people around the world, including the impact this is having on young children, even newborns and toddlers who cannot interpret what's happening behind that mask. They see these eyes and see the mask going up and down, and the psychological damage that is being done to so many.
Yeah, and like you said, the psychological damage has been so difficult, too, because for the most part, the Canadian church has been very silent and complicit in everything. And, like, I understand everybody has, different ideas and stuff on the masking, but it's just been really hard to see. I have 4 young kids, and just, like, the world that they're growing up in, the things that that they don't even have memories of. And just, they don't see faces going out, and it's really sad.
Thanks for your call from Ontario.
Yeah, thank you so much. We are encouraged and excited. We don't put our hope in the truckers.
Right.
Our hope is always in God, but it's just such an excitement and a joy to see faces and smiles.
Great. Thank you for the call.
Thanks.
Tom is next in Port Wing, Wisconsin. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Jim. I want to thank you and VCY Network for Duluth WQRM. And the reason why is people do not have the information that they need. In northwestern Wisconsin, we recently lost Freedom Talk, a radio station, and now we've lost the Conservative Talk radio station in Duluth, Minnesota. People are out here unable to get any information in regards to these subjects. And without having information, how do we know what's happening in the world outside? Because much of the news is controlled. Your station does not control the news, but much of the other TV and internet and radio is controlled by the opposition, and I believe...
Tom, let me have you hold there. I'm going to pick up with you right after the break, but I'm up against a hard break, so stay with us. We'll be back in a minute here on Crosstalk.
For the Worldview Report, I'm Brandon House. Our website's worldviewreport.com. Well, it's making national news with many because recently Joe Biden appointed as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Spent Fuel and Waste Disposition in the Office of Nuclear Energy in the Department of Energy, a young man known as Sam Brinton. Well, he is promoting the LGBTQ lifestyle, and according to reports and pictures, often dresses as a drag queen. He goes on to talk about things that, frankly, you don't want to know about, and we're not talking about on Christian radio. What does all this tell us? It tells us Romans 1 is coming to pass. God reveals in his word that when he gives over a nation, you see the flourishing of certain things. The worship of nature, aren't we seeing that? Pantheism, all is God, panentheism, God is in all, the worship of nature. And one of the other things you see is the mainstreaming of the homosexual lifestyle, perversion beyond belief. Now is the time to repent. I'm Brandon House for the Worldview Report.
You're listening to Crosstalk here on VCY America. And again, folks, it is more than just about the shot itself. I mean, they're talking about tyrannical, power is being placed upon them, the tyranny that's coming down. And as we're talking here with Tom in Port Wing, Wisconsin right now, the prophet Hosea said, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And Tom, I can't help it. You're talking about an absence of the truth that is out there here today and how the media actually shuts this down. I just want to harken back to Senator Ron Johnson's event. The media was invited to this, but they're not going to cover this story. I spoke with one medical doctor pertaining to the event that he had. They said, well, yeah, those were just hand-picked, selected doctors to come speak. But what's not being told is that the heads of like Pfizer and Moderna were also invited there. We also saw that the FDA and the CDC and the NIH were invited this. So, Tom, you're right. There is an absence of the truth that is out there, and it's being stifled, and we see all the deplatforming that's going on to cut it even further.
Yes, and Jim, I reported that to some of the listeners on the former station that went off now. And just like your station up in Duluth was attacked, and I believe it was attacked, the Freedom Talk from Ashland was attacked by having their advertisers were threatened.
Yep.
When they would advertise on that station, and now we lost this other station where our real information was getting out, like the situation with Senator Johnson, where I told people that he offered the media to come in and record this and have access to it, and they wouldn't do it. That's what's happening today, and I honestly believe that this last station that went off intentionally because they did not like information getting out to northwestern Wisconsin and northeastern Minnesota, which is a very heavily Democrat area, and elections coming up this November. That's my belief.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate your comments here today. Remember, as Scripture says, the thief comes to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But Jesus said, I am come that you might have life, that you might have it more abundantly. What a contrast there. Let's go to northern Minnesota. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Jim. I am calling. I'm not giving my name. I live in a very socialist area of northern Minnesota, and a week before President Trump was elected the first time, I was threatened to be murdered because of the single fact that I was holding a Trump sign.
Right.
So that's why I'm not giving my name right now, but my husband and I donated to the Truckers' Freedom Rally, and our names are now on the public list for everybody to see, which is like fine, whatever if they want to see it. But it's so interesting now. We're getting emails for having supported these people doing what is their right as Canadians, just like it would be our right as Americans to do that. And we are planning on going and joining the American Truck Rally when it starts. We don't have a truck, but we can drive. We went to the President Trump's rally last year in January.
Mm-hmm.
I refused to call it an insurrection because I, as an old grandma, was there with my husband and two older people. And what we saw when we were there was nothing of an insurrection. So, yes, the news is terrible, but God is in control, and we're very grateful for it. And thank you for your show.
Thanks for listening. Appreciate the
You're
call.
welcome.
Keep in mind, folks, that speech that we aired from Justin Trudeau said, and if you heard him, he said, we are not limiting freedom of peaceful assembly. We are not preventing people from exercising their right to protest legally. Let's go to the Upper Peninsula, and Kurt, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Jim. Thank you for taking my call. And I just want to say I'm so for those truckers in Canada, and I really hope we're all praying for them, and I hope that it does happen in the United States. And I'm just saying that, it's too bad that all these people are so hoodwinked on listening to the media and everything. I mean, I live up here where there's hardly any people or sickness, and in my little stores up here, these people are walking around with masks on, and we're like looking at them going, what is wrong with you? I mean, why are you so given over or so much of a coward that you're afraid to really listen to God and the science out there? I mean, we all know, we've been in this 2 years, we know this is a part.
And Kurt, for those who wish to, wear a mask, I mean, certainly individual choice. It's some of the mandates is what this is all about, and the government forcing this upon individuals. But
Exactly, and Jim, I'm so glad to hear you got over your COVID. We've been praying for you, my wife and I.
Thank you so much, Kurt. Let's go to Nashville, Tennessee. Hi, caller, you're on the air.
Hey, wanted to comment on the Canadian trucker ordeal. It's going to take a lot more of the same. The government's never backed down from anything. We didn't win our freedom from England without a revolution and shots fired. I think that's what's happening all over the world now. I think it's going to take more of the same. Enough ants can take down an elephant if they'll stick together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I'm afraid, it's terrifying to believe that that's what this world has come to. But if the American people and the Canadian people don't stick together, they're just going to keep on to them mow us over on every single right we have till we're a communist nation just like China. That's what they're working for.
Appreciate your call here today. Matter of fact, we're bringing Bill Federer in for an event coming up the first Saturday of March on socialism and looking at those countries that have gone down this path. Those have yielded up their rights, and I'll be looking at the communist goals and then also how a nation can keep from going that direction. Very important rally. Thank you for the call. Kevin in Saxon, you're on the air.
Hey, Jim. How are you today?
Fine, thank you.
Listen, I want to say congratulations on getting through the COVID. We were one of many that had been praying for you and your family, and we had went through it actually last October.
Kevin, we got 30 seconds left here. Go ahead.
Okay. I think we should continue to pray for the truckers and all of the people, not only in Canada, but in the United States, that eventually, shortly here, I think the truth is going to come out about everything. And there's just a lot we can pray for, but not the doom and gloom. If they take a radio station down, that's okay. We're still out here, and God's still in control.
God is in control. That's a great way to leave the program here today, Kevin. God is in control. We trust him. And again, some trust in horses, some in chariots. We will remember the name of the Lord our God. Well, thank you for the interaction, the discussion here today on Crosstalk, and certainly interesting times. And we need to be alert to the tyranny that is lurking around us here today, and to stand fast for the liberties that are upon us as well. God bless you, folks. Thanks for joining us today on Crosstalk.
You've been listening to Crosstalk via satellite and the internet from VCY America. Views expressed may or may not be those of this station. For a CD of today's program, send a donation of $6 or more to VCY Take Ministry, 3434 West Kilbourne Avenue, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 53208, or download by RSS or podcast from crosstalkamerica.com. And join us again for Crosstalk.